All right, in this video, we're going to talk about attributes of a successful salesperson. So what do you need to be successful in sales? So the chapter gives us 9 different attributes, and we'll talk about each of these, but they are enthusiasm, empathy, goal direction, ability to ask questions, resourcefulness, administrative ability, initiative, perseverance, and lastly, a pleasant personality. So the first attribute we're going to talk about is enthusiasm. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm." And enthusiasm is important because it can really help your customers understand the value and how amazing your product or service is before you even get the chance to explain it fully. Now, it's important to be enthusiastic about your product, but you need to be really careful about being enthusiastic about the commission you're going to get, right? So if customers sense that you're more enthusiastic about them spending money with you than about your product, then they're not going to trust you and you're not going to get the sale. Now, just an example of how enthusiasm can really have an impact on your customers. I lived a couple years in East Africa, which was a wonderful experience. But one thing that was really missing was that we didn't celebrate Thanksgiving. And this was a real bummer for me because Thanksgiving is by far my favorite American holiday. So one year, the leader of the organization I was with, who was also American, said, we're planning this important meeting, and it just so happens to fall on the Thanksgiving holiday. So what we're going to do is, after the meeting, we're all going to get together, and then we'll finish the meeting with a big Thanksgiving dinner. And so I was super excited. And my roommate at the time, he was from South Africa, so he didn't grow up with Thanksgiving, but after seeing my reaction, he said, I don't know what Thanksgiving is or what it's all about, but it must be really awesome by the way you're reacting. And you can have a similar impact on your customers. If they see that you are really enthusiastic about your product or service, they're going to want to know more about it, and they're going to believe that it's awesome before you've even had the chance to fully explain it. The next attribute we're going to talk about is empathy. So empathy is the ability to understand the feelings of other people. And this is really important in sales because it helps you to adjust to your customer and meet their needs. So, if you go in and you're talking with a customer and you sense that they're really enthusiastic about it, then great, you can start moving towards a sale and getting the sale closed before you talk too much and they lose that enthusiasm. Or, if you're talking and you sense that they're kind of resistant or hesitant, you can stop and you can start to ask them some questions and uncover what the resistance is. So being able to be empathetic really helps you on the spot to adjust and know the needs of your customer and give them the things that they need in order to make the sale. Another really important attribute of a successful salesperson is goal direction. So having goals keeps you motivated to do the work necessary for success. Like we've talked about before, in sales, there isn't somebody on your back telling you what to do every minute of every day. So you need this goal direction to help you to be motivated and know, okay, here's what I need to accomplish, and here's all the steps that I need to do to accomplish that goal. And so having that goal direction really kind of keeps you motivated and kind of keeps you working to get that job done. And so one thing that goal direction really helps with is it helps you to look at what your end goal is and then take steps back to realize, okay, here's what I need to do to accomplish that goal that I have set off in the future. So one thing that helps us with that is this formula that says sales equals the number of customers you talk to multiplied by the percentage that buy your product multiplied by the amount that they end up purchasing when they buy from you. So if you have a certain sales target that you need to accomplish, now you have 3 different levers that you can pull to try to reach that sales number. So maybe You look at it and you say, okay, well, that just means I need to go out and I need to talk to so many customers if I'm going to reach my sales goals. Or maybe you look at it and you say, hey, I'm already talking to a lot of customers, but not that many of them are buying. Maybe I need to be a little bit more strategic. Maybe I need to try to find ways to increase the percentage that are actually buying from me. Or maybe, you have a good amount of customers you're talking to. Generally, you convince quite a few to buy from you, but then they're buying from small amounts. So maybe you look at, well, how do I increase the amount that they're purchasing from me? So, right, having goal direction really helps you to look at, okay, here's the thing I need to accomplish overall, but now I have a lot of other little things I can do to reach that. And so having that goal direction keeps you motivated to do those little things so you can reach your big goal. Another attribute of a successful salesperson is the ability to ask questions. So like we've talked about before, customers don't care about you, they don't care about your company, they don't care about your product. All they really care about is solving their problems. And so when you ask good questions, you can uncover those problems and find products and services that solve those problems. However, if you just come in and you just start presenting, you're never going to understand the problems that the customer is going to need to solve, and so you can never cater your sales presentation to solving those problems unless you ask good questions. The next attribute of a successful salesperson is resourcefulness. Tony Robbins says that the ultimate resource is resourcefulness. Now, why is resourcefulness important? Well, successful salespeople often need to develop new solutions and approaches on the spot. So, being resourceful, right, being able to come up with new solutions very quickly becomes very important. Now, how do we do that? Well, becoming resourceful comes from, number one, constant learning, constantly looking for things you can do to improve, things you can learn about your product, your customers. All of those things helps you to become more resourceful. Another one is adjusting to feedback and looking back on your day, your week, your month, and thinking about, okay, here's what I did, here's what I could have done differently, and getting into the habit of thinking of better ways to do things constantly. Becoming resourceful also comes from getting out and practicing. You're never going to know how to overcome all of the objections your customers might have until you've gone out and started hearing the objections. Sure, you might go out and you might fail a few times, but over time, you're going to start to develop more and more solutions to your customers' problems the more you're going out and actually interacting with them. And lastly, it's important to stay curious. Staying curious helps you to find a lot of information, and maybe you don't need that information right away, but when you get in front of the customer, they might be talking about something, and then you remember something that you'd learned a while back, and you're able to use that to help your customers solve their problems. Administrative ability is also an important attribute for a successful salesperson. Now, administrative work doesn't create sales, but it is necessary to execute the sales. And having administrative ability means that you can be more efficient in both your scheduling and your paperwork. And when you're more efficient, that allows you to spend more time with your customers, and that is what's going to create more sales. When you're in sales, it's also important to have initiative. And we've talked about this again and again, but in sales, no one is going to be telling you what to do in every minute of every day. So to be successful, you need to have the drive to go out and find new customers. You need to find new ways to sell. And then you also need to follow up with existing customers. And you need to have the initiative to balance all three of those things in order to be most successful. Another attribute is perseverance. Most sales do not close on the first try. So successful people are willing to make multiple calls to the same prospect. However, it's important to realize that perseverance does not mean being pushy. When you have perseverance, you're able to go through your customer presentation and maybe you're rejected, but then you're also able to gauge, well, maybe they'd be interested if I called back in a month, or maybe they'd be interested if I tried again later, or maybe they're not interested at all, right? And so you need to have that empathy to understand what's going on, but if you feel like they can or they might be willing to purchase in the future, perseverance helps you to keep trying until you get the sale. Perseverance also comes in handy because your product or service isn't right for everyone you contact. And so rejection doesn't mean you're a bad salesperson, it just means you need to find another customer. So when you have perseverance, you can take that rejection and move on and try to find the next customer. The last attribute of a successful salesperson is having a pleasant personality. People buy from people they like and trust. Now, how do you get people to like and trust you? Well, people are more likely to like you if they can sense that you are looking out for their best interest. Also, people are more likely to trust you if you are authentic. So, having a pleasant personality, being likable, isn't necessarily about going out and being funnier or smiling more or any of those things, although those things can certainly help. But the most important thing is to truly have your customer's best interests in mind and being authentic to who you really are. So to wrap it all up, to be successful in sales, there are several different attributes you need. The ones that the book mentions are enthusiasm, empathy, goal direction, ability to ask questions, resourcefulness, administrative ability, taking on initiative, having perseverance, and having a pleasant personality. If you have all of these attributes, you can usually be pretty successful in sales.